Let's Stuff Nova. This is going to be the first time we work from the bottom up for a gnome, so this is going to change things a little bit. But it should all still feel simple and familiar. If you've done this before, and if you haven't done this before, well, it's just going to feel simple. You're going to need something weighted and something fluffy, assuming that this is going to be a decoration. If it's just going to be a hugging toy, you can skip the weighted stuffing for the most part because it's more about hugging and less about getting it to stand well. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill the gnome with weighted stuffing about to the bottom of the first garter ridge, and then we will see how it feels in terms of tipsy-topsiness. In terms of that, those of you who have the disc on the bottom, it will obviously feel much more stable, so you may find you use less, or who knows, you may find that your weighted stuffing is not as dense as what I'm using. I'm currently using split peas. They are my favorite right now. The density to size of them is just really appealing to me, and I also live somewhere where pests are not a problem, so that's why I can use edibles. They are also biodegradable over the long term, so that's appealing to me. I support the needles on my hand here so that it's easy to pour in, and I just scoop and fill. I like to do it over a table so that it doesn't just fall all over the floor, because no matter what I do, I am never as tidy as I wish. And my cats think that the skittering of dropped stuffing is clearly something for them to hunt and kill. So it's simpler if I don't have things skittering around. All right, so when I feel this, it feels like it's full up to about there. Maybe a little more, let's double check. Nope, that's about right. And I definitely feel like this Nova is not going anywhere. This is definitely an art and not a science. When I give directions about how to stuff, I'm always just sort of giving guidelines. Every gnome is going to be a little different. Every person is going to stuff a little differently. Every stuffing method will weigh a little more or less. So it's definitely something that you need to just kind of figure out. One of the best things to do is to put your gnome on your hand and just sort of jiggle it to see if it wants to tip over, especially once you've stuffed it with the fluffy stuffing, which will raise the center of the gravity. But this gnome should be a pretty stable gnome the way that she is designed. She's not a very tall gnome for one thing, and the taller a gnome is, the higher the center of gravity wants to go. Now, whenever you're stuffing, you definitely want to always use smaller amounts of stuffing rather than great big globs of it. Big globs can become big lumps, and so you can get over time, so you can get a lumpy gnome. So the more you take your stuffing, you make it small and you stretch it out and then use it, the better that it will fill in all the spaces and be even and sort of last over time. So we're just going to stuff from the top down and then sort of spread it out with our fingers once we have it in there. So you're going to kind of feel around, and depending on whether you are using roving or polyfill or other things like that, you may find that that changes how you approach things. So definitely, because this is our first time doing it from the bottom up, you may find that you need to play around a little bit, empty your stuffing out and try again. I am finding this gnome small enough that it is a little hard for me to be doing much spreading out, and this is polyfill rather than roving, so it's not spreading as nicely for me. I'm finding it a little stickier than I usually do when I'm stuffing, so I'm actually going to go to very small amounts that I can't really spread out, but it does help to kind of fluff it up before you put it in. It is more amenable to being told what to do. Definitely use your finger to go in and make sure things are moving around. If you've got a big lumpy spot, try to get that all sorted out. And when you are stuffing, you're looking to preserve sort of like up to the point of this ribbing section. You're looking to preserve kind of an apple shape so that Nova is nice and curvy to here. So as you go, just kind of stuff to kind of preserve that appliness. All right, so we don't want to fill it too much because we still have some knitting to do. So I'm going to stop now and I'm going to knit. And I'm going to knit the rest of Nova with the weight supported on this work surface, because what we don't want to do as we're working is to be having the pull of the weight distorting the stitches, and then any stitches I make from here on would be sort of a different size and a different gauge. So let the work surface do your holding for you, and just work and rotate and work and rotate as you need to for this last little bit of the head part of Gnova. We are down to just 12 stitches at this point, and what we need to do is just finish stuffing a little bit here and then stuff the under hat area. And yes, the under hat is sort of a silly thing, but I honestly needed to not know what a naked gnome's head looked like. And I know that's silly, but that's just the way this is working for us. So one of the main things I want you to do is to not make the under hat like an apple. So we're going to stuff Gnova so that she's got a nice apple-y shape, and then we're going to stuff the under hat so that the sides are more vertical. We don't want the hat getting really wide and bulgy. Remember, anytime you're stuffing, you never want to stuff so much that you're distorting the fabric. So it's always a debate with where to stuff in terms of what is too narrow to work with versus too wide, and it's going to be really annoying to try to knit around the stuffing. And you are always free to stuff whenever you think it works for you and the way you approach this. So I'm always just kind of trying to do my best to offer tips with this. The numbers of the gnome instructions are more important than exactly when you stuff. The design really is in the stitch counts and not in the stuffing instructions. So, all right, let's have a look at this. I've started to stuff my head, but I have also been stuffing around the shoulder area. So let's just make sure we like how that looks. I want this a little wider here, so I'm going to kind of pull things apart. All right, that's a bit better. Okay, so getting that nice and spread out, stuffing to the sides of the shoulder area, as it were, and that is looking a lot better to me. As I touch it and move it, I'm kind of feeling if it's staying in the shape I want, or if it's only just sort of a temporary thing. All right, so now I'm going to stuff the head, because that all feels pretty good. And we're just going to stuff it so it's firm enough that when we put the overhats on, it holds its shape nicely, but is not distorted or big and bulky. So we just want to give it a sense of stable firmness. It doesn't need to be rigid in any way. So let's see how that's doing. All right. So yeah, you can see Gnova is actually a lot like a light bulb if you think about it. So, and I've got that nice sort of easy shape. Sides are vertical rather than bulgy and apple shaped. I'm happy with that. So all I need to do is knit two together all the way around, and then we have a gnome that we can put hats on. Isn't that exciting? I'm excited. Hope this helps you. Happy stuffing and happy gnome.